Ready to really get into it with man-made fiber spinners. We're going all in on this career path today.
It's more involved than people might think, for sure.
If you're listening, something tells me you already know there's more to it than meets the eye.
Right. It's way more interesting than just like, oh, they make fabric.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going deep today.
Using some really cool resources, too.
Hmm.
RoleCatcher's Career Guide is super in-depth, and we've got a bunch of other expert stuff to pull from, too.
Like a little insider knowledge just for our listeners.
Exactly.
But even before all the technical stuff, can we just take a second to appreciate how much we rely on man-made fiber spinners?
I mean, where would we be without them?
Seriously, no comfy t-shirts.
Right. Forget those performance workout clothes that, like, wick away sweat.
Or even just think about car interiors.
Durability all comes down to these fibers.
And man-made fiber spinners, they're the ones making it happen.
Taking those raw materials and transforming them.
It's kind of like alchemy, isn't it?
In a way, yeah. But there's serious science behind it.
It's not your grandma's spinning wheel anymore, is it?
Definitely not. We're talking high-tech machinery, computer systems, controlling everything.
And you need the knowledge to back it up.
For sure. You got to know how different materials are going to react, how to adjust for different properties.
Like, how's polyester going to behave under heat compared to nylon?
Exactly. Kind of nail those details to get the fabric right, the drape, the durability, all of it.
Sounds like a cool mix of hands-on work and, like, serious brain power.
It really is. That's part of what makes it so interesting, right? Demanding, rewarding, always something new to figure out.
And it's not just clothes either, is it?
Oh, not even close. Think about car parts, seatbelts, airbags.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. Even tire cords use these fibers.
I had
And then there's medical stuff. Surgical sutures, bandages, even parts for artificial organs.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it that way.
Right. The same basic principles can be applied in so many different ways.
From a simple t-shirt to, like, life-saving medical tech.
Exactly. And that's why understanding the material science is so essential.
Okay, so now I'm picturing the average day for a man-made fiber spinner. What's the work environment actually like?
Well, it's not your typical office job.
Definitely not sitting at a desk all day, huh?
More like a factory setting, production facilities, places where things are actually made.
So I gotta be okay with a little noise.
Oh yeah, machinery, maybe some heat from the equipment.
I bet it even has a distinct smell.
It can, yeah. Polymers have a particular aroma.
So you gotta be ready for a bit of a sensory experience, I guess.
Exactly. It's a stimulating environment, but yeah, you got to be ready for the physical side of it too.
This is where we separate the desk jockeys from the hands-on folks.
Pretty much.
So what's the physical work like? What should someone be prepared for?
You're going to be on your feet a lot, and it can involve a lot of repetitive motions.
Stamina is key then.
Definitely. You need to be able to keep up with the pace.
Okay, so we've got the work environment down, but what about the actual job itself? What are the pros and cons of being a man-made fiber spinner?
Well, on the plus side, if you're looking for job security, this field is pretty solid.
How so?
Think about it. The demand for these materials, it's not going away anytime soon.
That's a good point. People are always going to need clothes, cars, medical supplies.
Exactly. And as you get more experience under your belt, the earning potential starts to look really good too.
So you're telling me a man-made fiber spinner could be bringing home the bacon, so to speak?
Potentially, yeah. It's not just about the money though, right?
Of course not, but it's definitely a factor for a lot of people.
For sure. Gotta pay those bills.
Speaking of which, what about people who are all about innovation, the latest tech? Does that come into play here?
Oh, absolutely. This industry is constantly evolving, new tech popping up all the time.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, nanofibers, for one, they're being used to make these crazy strong, lightweight fabrics. It's wild.
I've heard of those. They're using them in, like, high-performance athletic wear, right?
Yeah. And then there's bio-based polymers, trying to find more sustainable alternatives to the usual petroleum stuff.
Okay, that's important these days, for sure.
Huge. And man-made fiber spinners? They're the ones on the front lines of that kind of innovation.
So you could be part of, like, revolutionizing an entire industry.
Totally. From fashion to healthcare, even.
It's pretty amazing when you think about the potential impact.
It's exciting, that's for sure. But we got to be real, too. There are downsides, just like any job.
Yeah, no job is perfect.
Right.
What should people be prepared for on the maybe not so great side?
Well, we talked about the physical demands being on your feet, the repetitive motions.
Right, and the factory setting itself might not be for everyone.
Exactly. Got to be comfortable with that kind of environment.
It takes a certain kind of person to thrive in that world.
For sure. Not everyone's cut out for it.
Okay, so let's say you've landed a job as a man-made fiber spinner. You're starting out, learning the ropes. What's next? Where can you go from there?
Good question. It's not just about climbing the ladder. It's more like choosing your own path.
I like the sound of that.
Right. As you get more experience, you might find yourself drawn to a certain type of fiber or a specific process.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, aramid fibers, for instance, they're known for being superheat resistant.
Okay, so that's your thing. You become the aramid fiber expert.
Exactly. Or maybe you're really into melt spinning that's used to make those smooth synthetic fabrics,
That's like for sportswear and stuff?
Yeah. So you could become a specialist in that.
Okay, so it's like finding your niche within the world of man-made fibers.
Exactly. And that kind of specialized knowledge, that's valuable.
Makes you more attracted to employers, you mean?
Totally. You could move into management, supervising teams.
Or even become, like, a consultant?
Yeah. Working with engineers, designers, helping them develop new products.
Okay, so there's definitely room for growth, different directions you can take your career.
Absolutely. But one thing to remember, no matter what path you choose, you gotta keep learning.
What do you mean?
Technology changes so fast, you gotta stay ahead of the curve.
That's true for pretty much any field these days, I feel like.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
Especially in manufacturing, things are always evolving.
So how do you do it? How do you make sure your skills are always up to date as a man-made fiber spinner?
Certifications are a good place to start. They show employers you have specific knowledge, like in polymer science, for example.
Like a stamp of approval on your skills.
Exactly. And then there's networking, meeting people, learning about the latest trends.
So it's not just about what you know, it's who you know.
It's both, really. Join some industry groups, go to conferences, that kind of thing.
What kind of groups are we talking about here?
There's the Synthetic Yarn Manufacturers Association. For one, they're a big one.
Okay, so you're out there rubbing elbows with the best in the business.
Exactly. You never know what connections you might make, what you might learn.
Sounds like networking is key.
Definitely helps. And speaking of taking that next step, let's say you're ready to start applying for jobs. This is where RoleCatcher comes in clutch.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
They had that whole section on interview prep, didn't they?
They did. Super helpful stuff, like having a cheat sheet for your interview.
I bet that takes some of the pressure off.
For sure. They've got all these potential interview questions, things they're likely to ask you, so you can prepare.
That's huge. Walking into an interview feeling confident, prepared.
Totally. But it's not enough to just, like, memorize your answers, you know?
Right, you got to show them you actually know your stuff.
Exactly. Show some passion, some real understanding of the field.
Okay, so what kind of questions should someone be ready for? Give me an example.
One they love to ask is, what types of man-made fibers have you worked with?
Pretty straightforward, seems like.
It is, but it's a chance to show them you really know your stuff.
So don't just rattle off a list, you mean?
Right. Talk about the properties, the applications, why each fiber is unique.
Show them you're not just a button pusher, you understand the why behind everything.
Exactly. That's what sets you apart.
Makes sense, showing that passion.
Definitely. And you know what else they're going to ask about?
What's that?
Sustainability. Big topic these days, as it should be.
For sure, everyone's thinking about their environmental impact.
Exactly. So be ready for questions like, how do you make sure the spinning process is environmentally friendly?
Okay, so you need to have some answers lined up, ways to show them you're thinking about sustainability.
Absolutely. It's not just about making fabric anymore. It's about making it responsibly.
Makes sense. Sustainability is huge. It's not just a buzzword anymore.
It's everything. And for man-made fiber spinners, it means thinking about the whole picture, you know?
Like from start to finish, how the whole process impacts the environment.
Exactly. Sourcing the raw materials responsibly, figuring out how to minimize waste during production.
And then what? What happens to the fabric after it's been used?
That's a big one, right? Recyclability, biodegradability. Got to consider all of it.
So it's not just about making the fabric, it's about making sure it doesn't become a problem down the line.
Exactly. And, you know, being able to talk about that stuff in an interview.
Shows you're thinking about the bigger picture.
Totally. It tells them you're not just there for a paycheck, you actually care.
And maybe even want to be part of the solution.
Exactly.
It's kind of cool when you think about man-made fiber spinners. They're not just making stuff, they're kind of shaping the future.
In a way, yeah. Pushing the boundaries of what's possible with these materials.
And trying to do it in a way that doesn't wreck the planet.
Exactly. It's a balance, for sure.
Speaking of the future, something our sources mentioned was the whole automation thing, AI taking over manufacturing.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Makes you wonder, what does that mean for someone who wants to be a man-made fiber spinner?
Right. Are they going to get replaced by robots?
Exactly. Is there even a point to learning this stuff if machines are just going to do it all?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, automation is changing the game, but it's not replacing humans entirely.
Okay, so there's still hope for us flesh and blood types.
There is. Think about it. Someone's got to oversee those machines, make sure they're running right.
So we're talking like a supervisory role.
Kind of, yeah. Troubleshooting problems, making sure the quality stays high, that kind of thing.
Okay, so you still need those technical skills, that hands-on knowledge.
Definitely. And maybe even more importantly, you need people who can think creatively, solve problems on the fly.
People who can adapt, basically.
Exactly. Automation can handle the routine stuff, but it's the human element that really pushes things forward.
So we're not just competing with robots. We're working with them, using them to make us better.
Exactly. It's a collaboration, really.
Okay, that's a much less scary way to think about it.
Right. It's not about fearing the future. It's about being ready to adapt.
Well said. This whole conversation has been super eye-opening, by the way.
Glad to hear it. Hopefully it's given our listeners a lot to think about.
Definitely. We've gone deep on the career path, the skills, the challenges, even what the future holds.
And don't forget the smells.
Oh yeah, can't forget about those.
We're
But
wrong.
seriously, if you're out there and this whole man-made fiber spinner thing sounds interesting, don't be afraid to dive in, do some more research.
Exactly. There's a ton of information out there. You just got to go find it.
RoleCatcher is a great place to start. We've said it before.
Definitely. And hey, maybe one day you'll be the one revolutionizing the industry.
From making t-shirts to, like, building a better future.
That's the dream, right?
It is. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring.
And remember, the future of fabric is in your hands.